Thanks for joining us. A somber gathering this afternoon to remember a mom of 4 who died waiting for a shelter bed in Mississauga. Delphina Njiji was from Kenya. She is the second asylum seeker to die in the region in just a few months. Anam Khan has more on how the community is demanding accountability and support for the overburdened system.
A community shaken by the death of Delphina Njiji, now honoring the struggle of the Kenyan asylum seeker who came to Canada looking for a better life.
The community is grieved. The community has a lot of questions.
Dozens of community and local politicians gathered in Dominion Church in Toronto Saturday afternoon. Together, they prayed and held a moment of silence. Njiji fled from Kenya, leaving 4 children back home. She died just 3 days after arriving in Canada. The 46-year-old spent the night in the cold outside a Mississauga shelter that was over capacity. She was let in the next afternoon but collapsed and later died in hospital. The official cause of her death has not been released.
I'm just shell-shocked. I can't believe it. I can't even wrap my mind around what he has just said.
Her younger sister devastated by the news. She's in Florida, unable to attend the vigil because of visa restrictions.
When people say too soon, really, what do they mean? Because I think this is a redefinition of too soon.
She says the family is leaning on faith to get through, remembering Njiji as a kind and hardworking person. Back in Dominion Church, which has provided shelter to hundreds of asylum seekers since last year, Jumba says more needs to be done.
Because we kept saying, oh no, if nothing changes, people will die. But now we can't say that. We are actually saying people are dying. This is the second death on our hands under the similar circumstances.
Advocates say Njiji's death highlights the urgent need for the federal government to provide more support for asylum seekers. In the meantime, family and friends are trying to raise $40,000 to send Njiji's body back to Kenya for a proper burial ceremony. Anam Khan, CBC News, Toronto.
The province's police watchdog is investigating after an overnight shooting in Oakville left 1 man dead and another in hospital.
It was about 1:40 in the morning where officers went to the residence. They entered the home and they located the man. There was an interaction, and then 2 officers discharged their firearms, striking the man. He was pronounced deceased at the scene.
Now, police say the second man was found in the home with serious injuries and taken to hospital. The SIU continuing their investigation tonight. An autopsy is scheduled for Sunday. Anyone with information about what took place is asked to contact police. Freedom for all, that's the rallying call at the Women's March today, where thousands gathered. Clara Pasica was among the crowd, where many are sharing concern around changing legislation on gender policies.
Downtown Toronto streets were filled with dancing and chants this afternoon. The theme of this year's event, no one is free until we are all free.
In Canada, we are very fortunate that we can actually march like this. We feel safe, we can walk on the street by ourselves. But I think all around the world, it can be very different. And I think like my dream, and I think many people's dream, would be that one day all women around the world would feel comfortable doing whatever they want to do.
I think it still is a fight we need to have for equality for women, and we're really hoping to make a dent in calling for peace in the world and ceasefire in the Middle East.
We got the power!
This year's event comes at a time when there's increasing urgency around women's issues. Several politicians have made statements leaving many in the trans community feeling targeted. Last month, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said biological males should be banned from women's sports, change rooms, and bathrooms.
There's a force, an oppositional force, pushing against including trans people, especially, and targeting in Canada, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, and now a proposal from Alberta that someone like me cannot have access to recreational sports as a woman. I'd have to do solo sports. And we know that's not healthy for trans youngsters and for families.
This city councillor says the march's theme is also an opportunity to listen.
To say that our fates are tied when we do improve wages, when we do improve access to public services, when we do invest in housing and childcare as a city and as a country, it's not just women, it's communities, it's families, it's whole cities that do better.
This is one of many events planned as International Women's Day is marked around the world on March 8th. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
The Prime Minister of Italy is in Toronto meeting with our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
Please have a seat. What a tremendous pleasure it is to welcome Prime Minister Maloney to Canada. Georgia.
In a joint statement, the leaders say they're committed to working together on shifting to sustainable energy, migration, and economic growth. More aid arrived by parachute into Gaza today, delivering much-needed help to people at risk of starvation. 3 planes delivered more than 38,000 meals into the territory. The United Nations says 1/4 of the population is close to famine. The U.S. conducted its first aid drops today, with American officials expressing hope they are part of a sustained effort. But critics say airdrops only have a limited impact and that it is nearly impossible to ensure supplies do not end up in the hands of militants. Back in Toronto, Global Medic and volunteers packed emergency family kits for Gaza today at their headquarters. Each kit includes hygiene supplies, a solar light, and most importantly, a device to make clean drinking water accessible. The executive director of Global Medic tells us about the logistical challenges of getting aid into Gaza.
Upstream and downstream logistics involved here. All the upstream is us building it and then flying it into the neighboring country, right? That's fairly straightforward. You can see everyone's building the aid, packing the aid, we're labeling it, we're skidding it, we're putting the labels on with the airway bill and all the information that we need to do. That lets this aid get into the aircraft. And then once it lands in Cairo, and it's not just one skid, right? These are dozens and scores of skids that are coming in. We clear them in Cairo in a transit process and then take them up to the border point. Now, whether it's that Keren Shalom, which is actually inside Israel and down, or in Rafah, which is in Egypt, both have different paperworks and processes, but we get them to those areas. Then we physically have to cross them into Gaza, and that's complicated and difficult as well. I'll be frank with you, this height that we have it packed to is a little tall for the scanner at the Rafah border. But it's so important for us to get as much aid on the upstream side, we still pack it at max height. When we're in Egypt, we take a layer off so we can get through that scanner. If we go through the other border crossing, we don't take the lower layer off. So there's that level of detail involved in this. The paperwork's immense. The number of trucks involved is immense, right? The amount of paperwork to get stuff through, the cost, the long lines and waiting. And then when you actually get it in, you're faced with another crisis. Very limited fuel, very few trucks, so many people in need, and very limited aid.
A march was held in downtown Toronto today, bringing awareness to the ongoing conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
What is happening is we are witnessing a mass killing of our brothers and sisters in Congo. So we don't want to be complicit in their killing. So we took to the street to do this demonstration to show that this is a sign of resistance. This is to show that we are not okay with what's going on. And if we just stayed home and not speak about the issue that's going on, in a way, we will be complicit also.
A spokesperson for Global Affairs Canada says Canada is deeply concerned about the recent increase in hostilities in the DRC, and they've raised those concerns to governments and organizations in the region. You're looking live at Ottawa this hour, the flag at half-mast in honor of the passing of former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. There is light rain, and it feels like 3 degrees in the nation's capital this hour. Ward Anderson will join us with your full forecast next. It was another warm day, a little gloomy with no sunshine, but still warm. And what can we say, Ward? You were right.
Hello, Shannon. It is going to be quite the March. I predicted already because it's been quite the February. We just had the warmest February on record in Ontario. and that's going to continue, I believe, right into March. It'll be an interesting month, but spring is on the way. We can already tell. Sunset is going to be coming later at the end of this month. The temperature is going to rise as we get into spring, but it's already felt like spring for a lot of the past month, and it's going to continue for a good bit of next week. We have warmer temperatures at least through the beginning of next week, and it'll cool down a little bit after a system comes through in the middle. But we do have, in the meantime, heavy fog all across the province. Now, that's when the warm, moist air mixes with the cold ground, and we tell you about it because of the visibility. Poor visibility when driving, something to be aware of if you're going to be out over the next 48 hours. After that, Monday overnight going into Tuesday, we do have a system coming through, bringing with it a bit of precipitation. Some rain's going to come through. Not anything significant, nothing that we're not used to. Up in parts of northern Ontario, you'll see some snow flurries, but for the most part, that rain is going to come through across the province and be gone by Wednesday. And those temperatures are going to stay up until after it passes. And look at Windsor on Monday, 20 degrees right there at the beginning of March. This is why I said I think we're in for quite a volatile month when it comes to the weather, because we get back down to seasonal by the end of the week.
Wow. Thanks so much, Ward. 20 degrees. I cannot believe that in March. Well, that is our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you again tomorrow night at 11.